Welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business with me, Richard Cowell. Today, you are going to be meeting and hearing from Rosanna Loftus. She started her tuition business quite a few years ago, but it really grew over COVID. As a lot of us found, she tells a story of business mentoring and how her mentor changed the way she viewed her business and how that has impacted her as somebody who now coaches tutors to grow their business too. You're going to hear things about statements and pillars to her business. And really, it was just great to have a conversation with someone who shares similar ethics in the way that they work to me. So get your notebooks ready and enjoy. Right, here we go. Right, welcome back to another episode of Grow Your Tutoring Business. We have another special guest this week. This is Rosanna Loftus, and a bit of a confession on my part. I know Rosanna a little bit because I'm in her group, and I've watched her go live a couple of times and read a few of her posts. She's going to be inspirational to us. There's going to be lots of value in this podcast for everybody. But the confession is that's about as much as I know. So actually, as we go through this podcast, I'm going to get to know you, get to know Rosanna at the same time as you. So Rosanna, welcome.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Let us know a little bit about your start towards tuition. So tell us about your time of teaching and that move away towards becoming a tutor.
Yeah, lovely. So I am a primary school teacher and qualified as a teacher in 2015. Teaching was the thing that I always wanted to go into. I was quite lucky that from a really young age, I kind of knew exactly what I wanted to do, what career path I wanted. Did my degree in primary education and was teaching in schools up until 2019. And it was then that I decided to go into tuition, really. I love being a teacher, but I kind of felt that I was sort of struggling with being a teacher in a school and kind of wanted to sort of move in a different direction, but knew I still wanted to teach. So that's kind of where tuition started from, really.
Rosanna, what was the main struggle, do you think? Like, what was the push and pull with teaching and the stuff that you love to do? What was the main kind of reason?
I loved being with the children and the physical teaching. In probably one of the last schools that I worked at, I think it became apparent to me around sort of the curriculum fitting the children. So, for example, I taught a year 3 class, and there were some children in that class that weren't at that level. They were working around the year 1 level, and we were in year 3, and they were finding the work really hard. And I remember having a conversation with the head teacher and sort of said, is there any way that we can kind of teach what they need? Because they were sort of still working at the sort of capital letters full stop stage, and I'm sort of saying, let's put a fronted adverbial in or a conjunction, and it just didn't feel right. So it was sort of when that sort of started, I sort of thought, tuition is a way where actually, if a child does need to go back to the foundational skills, that's absolutely fine. And see when, the moments where you could have those sort of smaller group work sort of situations, working one-to-one with interventions, and it being at that right level, suddenly things started to click, and it made the children happier. They were sort of closing those gaps rather than sort of me teaching that year 3 level that they just weren't ready for.
It's so interesting, isn't it, that you put it so eloquently in that curriculum fits the children or the children fit the curriculum, right? That's like the opposite ends of what we do at school almost. And when you went to the head teacher and said, can I just teach these children what they need to be taught rather than what's on the curriculum? How did that go down?
It went better than I thought it was going to be, actually. Yeah, it was. She was really quite good in having those kind of open conversations of this is my class, this is where I sort of feel we're at with this. And actually, there was a period of time where another member of staff was able to come into my class and take out that sort of, it was a third of my class really,
Yeah.
to do what they needed.
Mm.
And I sort of ended up planning sort of two classes in one class, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it was working for them, and that's where that kind of passion and drive kind of came from again, of going, well, you need that and you need that and you need that, and actually if I tutor on that level, then I can give you that exactly what you need.
Yeah. It's frustrating, isn't it? Because I think what I tend to do is sit here, the other side of the screen, with conscientious teachers on the other side who, to make the difference they want, need to leave the education system and do it through tuition or other methods. It's not always tuition, but people go down different routes. But that's quite frustrating, and I find that really, really hard to understand why we don't. And I know we're talking about it from a UK perspective, but it's not just a UK problem.
Yeah.
Why don't we set up these systems, whether it's a curriculum or a program of learning, whatever we want to call it, in a way that actually benefits the individual child, rather than going, well, all these children in year 3, so they need to be taught this specific unit of learning that takes them through that, and that. And everything we know, and all the research points to the fact that learning isn't linear, but yet we use a linear approach.
Yeah.
It's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, really frustrating.
Yeah.
On the plus side, for people like us who are going to be like I was going to say industry leaders, which might be like shooting it out a little bit too high. Like, I don't know. But the people who are driven and have that, I suppose, drive to say, do you know what, there's another way of doing this. That led you into your, like, growing a tutoring business. So tell us about the beginnings of that. How did that come about?
When I sort of left teaching, I sort of kept a part-time job whilst growing my tuition business as a kind of safety net in a way. Whilst building a business, it takes time, as we all know. And I'll be honest, when I first started, going from teacher mindset to business owner mindset was a real struggle, because I'd no one in my family runs a business. I had no experience of how to do it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I had the passion and the ambition, but then in terms of the practical strategies, it was kind of a case of learn as you go, learn by your mistakes, see what works, what you enjoy, what you can change and adapt next time. And my business is, it's been going since 2019, but I've completely sort of changed it from the start to where it is now in terms of its name, its approach. And I think that does take time as you grow your business and find your kind of feet with it, of where you want to take it and what's important to you within it. But that kind of heart of the discussion we just had around what the children need, and that confidence side of it, is kind of my sort of core value of what I do now, and kind of how I market myself, and very much at the heart of the conversation to have with parents when they approach me about working with their children.
So what do you teach in your tuition then? What's the kind of core offer?
So I work on a one-to-one basis at the moment, tutoring primary level English and maths. So I've got children all the way from reception up until year 6. And
wow.
and the kind of the heart of what I do, and sort of my sort of sentence that sums up what I do in my business, is I help children to feel consistently confident in the classroom, and that it always comes down to confidence. I can guarantee any conversation I have with a parent, they will use the sort of phrase, I just want them to feel a little bit more confident. And that's sort of where we align in sort of our shared values with that.
So this is the first takeaway for everybody. Like, I will do an intro. What I do is I introduce you before when it's all made up. And one of the things I do is we'll talk about, like, get your notepads ready and take notes. Write this down, everybody. So it sounded like a bit of a throwaway, but it's really important. It's like you said, like, this is one of the sentences that sums it up. Everybody needs a sentence that sums up their business. So, and I help, I support, I create, or if there's a team of you, change it to we create. or we help. And so yours is I help children feel consistently confident in the classroom.
Yeah.
Perfect, right? And that if a parent comes up to you and you're walking down the street and go, "Oh, aren't you that tutor? What do you do?" "Oh, well, I help children feel consistently confident in the classroom." "Oh, here's a card," or "Here's my website," and that's it. It's all you have to do. They know exactly what it is they're going to get from you straight away. So
Yeah.
everybody needs to develop that sentence that sort of represents them. I think that's amazing. So your tuition business started 2019.
Yep.
You had a part-time job while you're building it. We call this like bootstrapping, right? So you have something else going on. It keeps you nice and safe and secure. It means that you're free, like emotionally, to really throw yourself at the business without having that worry right at the beginning. This is a really, really common way of first starting something, and works really well with tuition, because most of your tuition will happen in the evening when your part-time job is over, if you've got a daytime job. And so lots of people will start in the same way. But what was your part-time job?
I worked as a high-level teaching assistant in a school.
Oh, did you?
It was still nice to be in the classroom, but it just took that little bit of an edge of the pressure and the responsibility off. It also helped sort of obviously go from different key stage and year group.
Yeah.
Sort of, one morning was in reception and the next morning I'd be in year 5. So it obviously added to that sort of experience and being in the classroom still. But I, again, sort of, like you said, your tuition is sort of on an evening. I got to sort of finish at 1:30 and then go home, make my business, and then go into sort of my business sort of later on. So it was a lovely balance, really. Especially just I'd quit my full-time teaching job just as I'd taken on a mortgage. So yeah.
Okay, you took a hard route, Rosanna. Basically, yeah. There's enough tension there. Something which I talk about a little bit in the courses and workshops that I deliver is that we need to have like the tension in our life. If there's not enough tension, we don't act. But also in that tension, it's about thinking about it as having an elastic band between both your thumbs. If you've got that tension, it actually creates energy. And then it's that energy that keeps you going. I mean, that I would advise, from a mortgage point of view, make sure you're okay and safe financially, because the too much tension can also make an elastic band snap. So make sure it's the right type of tension. But essentially, that's what you're creating for yourself, isn't it? Like, you've got this target you got to reach. And so that becomes your drive. So how quickly did it turn into, or did you realize that it was going to end up becoming like your full-time job, or at least provide full-time income?
I think the beginning stages were sort of trial and error, as I mentioned, sort of around learning what worked, learning what didn't work. And then kind of by accident, really, I found a mentor that sort of then supported me with the business side of things, which obviously really helped the kind of the business strategy side of things. And a period for me as well, which sort of was in my early stages of business, was when obviously COVID and lockdown happened and children weren't in school. So I was still partly in a school at that point where we were on some kind of like rota system. We weren't in school as often, which allowed me to sort of, was quite lucky in a way, of parents sort of approaching me, asking for support with their children, because we were all in this brand new situation where children weren't in school and no one really knew what was going on. And so that sort of helped my business growth as well a little bit. So I think in terms of the actual how long it took me to go fully self-employed was around 18 months. Until I sort of got to that level where I knew sort of the bases were covered with my income from tuition. And it's just grown from there, really, which has been wonderful.
Can we give your business coach a shout out?
You can give my business coach a shout out. She's called Sarah Wisniewski. She's been absolutely wonderful. I still work with her now, and she's been my little lifesaver, really.
Yeah. I just feel like sometimes they're these people are worth sharing, because a very similar story, really, and all about the same times, because I started my tuition business about 2019. It might have been towards the end of 2018, but essentially about 18 months after that point, COVID, and the business grew, right? So it was kind of very similar, and had kind of stumbled. No, I didn't have a business coach until a little bit later, but I did a course that acted like a coach, but it was more like, here's a system. There was accountability groups. So we ended up in these small little accountability pods with other business leaders who were way, way ahead of me. So I was just like sat there, proper imposter syndrome, didn't belong at all, and just like getting all of this information. And about a year after that, I had a one-to-one coach, and it absolutely changed the growth of both businesses, if I'm honest, because at that point I decided there was like a switch. I've got a business degree, so there's an element of my brain that's already business minded, although it doesn't count for anything today because business is so different.
Yeah.
But there was on things I've read over the last 20 years have all been business sort of related. So I've kind of kept my brain going in that direction. But in terms of running a business, there's nothing like taking action to start learning. So I made a decision really early on to build in public. It made sense. I needed accountability. I wanted to show others what I was doing. That became part of the process, which is what ends up being the bigger kind of group that we're all in now. And it was, I don't know, after a year or so, just under a year, like connecting with a coach and saying, actually, and it was through something called Expert Empires, which I've spoken about before. Like, I've got loads of value from being part of that community, but just having that space to chat with someone about these specific problems or things that I was worried about, or just general mindset questions was so good. I don't think we can give enough, or I can't give enough credit to having a mentor, whether it's a business mentor, mindset mentor, money mentor, anything like that. If it's as specific as you want, it just changes you. And even just knowing that they're there in the background at any point just absolutely changes your life. So definitely agree with that. We're at that point in the podcast again where I ask, if you're getting value from the podcast, if it's making you ask yourself questions, please give us a like, give us a follow, and ask questions in the comments, or come back into the Facebook group. Are there people out there that we haven't reached yet that would be really useful for you to hear from? What's missing from the podcast? I'd love to know. Give us a follow, give us a like. Let's get back to it. So you got your business is now sort of flourishing. What happens to the HLTA job?
That sort of I left that role sort of in the middle of COVID, I think, really. Then now the tuition side of the business is fully booked. It's kind of where I want it to be. I love it, absolutely love it.
What's the future for the tuition business?
The tuition business, I'm still wanting to work on a one-to-one basis. That's kind of where my preference is at. And some of the students I've sort of worked with have been from sort of the last 3 years, really. And even though now they're, as we sort of leave in the school system, at where they need to be, I'm still working with their families because it's been that regular kind of support, and they don't want to lose that. I've got siblings that I've worked with, and it's just lovely, really, to carry that on and sort of build those really great relationships with those families.
So it's like just more, is it more the same? Is it just about like harnessing those relationships, and then like it sounds like one-to-one is like almost like your unique selling point, right? Because not many, well, I suppose tutors still offer one-to-ones, but often people go, oh no, I'm ready for groups, and take that kind of next step. It doesn't have to be the next step. It doesn't have to be. We talk about this a lot. Like, people kind of get obsessed with it. But it can be your business. You can do what you want with it. Is it a case of scaling in a different way? Are you looking at other tutors maybe coming on board?
That is a potential that I sort of keep thinking about, because in terms of the tuition, I'm kind of at my own load now. So that's definitely something I've got in the pipeline of kind of bringing someone on board, either another primary tutor or potentially a secondary tutor. When they finish with me, if they still want some support, then there's someone where I can kind of guide them to, that's a specialist in secondary English or maths.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. And also that's another benefit of like want to kind of ask you about like the next bit, which is about your group and helping other tutors to grow and to start. The other benefit of having a group like that is that you get to meet so many different tutors and get an idea about which ones would be a good fit, or which types of tutors might be a good fit for your business. Now, I don't use my group in that way to try and recruit, but I know others have, as in people will reach out and go, Rich, I'm looking for somebody. Is it okay to put an advert in? And I'm totally happy with that if they reach out first. Like, it's quite a nice way to get a feel for, actually, I wouldn't mind someone like that coming on board, or I'm looking for these qualities. You get an idea for almost like a job spec or person spec, really, of who you'd like to work with. So that kind of leads us on to the next part. So, Rosanna, the way I met you was through, I don't know if we connected in the group, or perhaps your group popped up on mine, on my feed, and I can't remember now. But yeah, you've got a group which supports tutors to start.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So what started that move from just being a tutor and then sort of taking that leap into helping other tutors start? What made you go down that road?
I think mentoring is always something I've been passionate about. I was quite lucky in my second year of teaching. I became a mentor for student teachers, and I loved it. I absolutely loved sort of seeing someone start off their career, helping them along the way. And I did that for a couple of years across different schools, really. And I remember having a conversation with my mentor sort of when we first met, and she sort of said to me, where do you want to take this? What are your really big ambitions and goals? And I remember saying to her, like, I'd love to be able to sort of mentor teachers again. And when my business had kind of got to at the point where now I'm fully booked with students, it doesn't necessarily run itself, but I'm not pushing for students. I'm quite comfortable with that.
I totally get that. Yeah.
Then it seemed sort of a good opportunity and sort of time to go, right, okay, I'm sort of confident in my abilities now. I've built this business. I'd love to be able to use all of my skills of my mentoring passion and background and my tuition work and supporting others to do the same, who are so passionate about setting up their own business like I was and still am.
Yeah, that's similar. I mean, you're part of the group. That's a pretty similar thing to me. And also, there's others. There was like Risha Connolly, who was on a podcast recently, who's done something similar. And it's what I love about this is that what you end up doing is like connecting with other like-minded people. And so when you talk about mentoring like your students and taking them from, say, where their starting point is, and then really helping them move on to where they develop the skills they need to have a successful either time at your school placement, or if it's maybe longer than that, if it's things like Teach First, or I don't know what it's called now. Mine was GPT, but I don't know what they call that anymore. But it's basically the year-long in-school placement way into teaching. That's quite an amazing thing to do. And through observations, you can give feedback. I mean, literally, I'm just talking about like the course that I run is done exactly like that, but just not with education at the heart of it. It's about business.
Yeah.
And like looking at what strategies people are using, or what would they like to use, what's going to be a good fit, what's not, what have we experimented with before, and just going down that route. I love all of that stuff. And chatting to yourself and chatting to Risha a couple of weeks ago, that's kind of at the heart of what we're like. It's like, yeah, we are the people who were chosen to go mentor because somebody else saw something in us where, this person's got these particular skill sets. I think it's also amazing that you found a mentor who was willing to take you down that path as well, because some don't.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
it's been nothing but supportive.
Really. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that in all of the notes, in all of the things I put on YouTube and Spotify, we put links to your group so that people who are listening to this and have resonated with you, Rosanna, they can kind of come find you and connect with you. Are you on any other social media platforms, or do you focus on Facebook?
Facebook is sort of where I am majorly, because it's around the strategies that I teach with sort of my clients for mentoring is around how to use Facebook. But I'm on Instagram as well. They're both tuition business acceleration. But Facebook is kind of my sort of primary social media where I'll sort of share sort of where I'm at and what I'm doing and things along the way.
So we'll make sure that all those links are there. So let's say someone lands on your amazing group where there are certain schedules in place, which I think at the moment are on hold because of some holidays, but you used to go live once a week where you share some like what I would call golden nuggets to whatever topic you're talking about. But if somebody wanted to work with you personally, what do you actually offer? What services have you got?
So there's a few different things on offer at the moment and a few other things coming up in the pipeline. So one of the free services that I offer at the moment is around a Facebook banner review call. So one of the sort of the major things I learned was around how to use my personal profile to share with everyone what I actually do. So there's a free call I offer for that of creating a branded Facebook banner. It's the biggest sort of photo you have on your personal profile, and you can really use that quite easily to share with potential people what you do. So that's one service that I offer. There's also one-to-one mentorship. We can work together for a longer period of time, that I'll take you through the strategies that I found have worked for my business and how we can use Facebook to secure a stream of quality clients. And if you sign, I sort of remember when I first started sort of delving into sort of working with people, I was a bit unsure about signing up for a really long period of time for things and whether it would be right for me. So I offer what I call a little helping hand call of just one-off coaching calls where we speak for an hour, and you can use it as a Q&A session. You can use it as a let's create an action plan. You can use it as a kind of mindset piece on going from teacher to business owner. It's there for what you need at that time, however often you need it. And we can just get together and have a chat about where you're at and sort of where you're wanting to be. And there'll always be a gap. So we look at how we can sort of fill that gap, really.
Perfect. Absolutely amazing. So actually offer a range of stuff there. I really like that. So we'll the best way to find all of those services is to connect with you on your Facebook group. Is that okay? Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Let's end with a question that is often asked inside my group, which is a starter question. So let's say we've got a teacher at the moment who is dreading going back to school in September. They're thinking about tutoring because that's why they're in the group, or they're either in my group or your group. Let's pretend they're in your group. And they say to you, Rosanna, look, I'm really thinking about starting, but I don't know where to begin. If you could give them just one piece of advice straight off the bat, what would you say?
Think about who it is that you want to work with, because we can't serve everyone really well. That's a mistake I made when I first started. So think about who it is that will get the best results from working with you and tailor it towards that. Think about how the family and the children and the parents are feeling before working with you, and use that to help you create your offer and how you can move forward with that family.
Okay, I'm going to push this one step further just because it's you. Let's say there's a tutor that's come to the point where they're sold out, right? They've got no more time. And so, Rosanna, what do I do? What's the next step for me? What would you advise a tutor at that stage?
So a tutor who's completely fully booked?
Yeah, they're full, yeah.
It's what their passion is of where they want to go, because it's your business. So where do you want to take it? We can offer strategies around. Do you want to develop groups? Do you want to bring in other tutors? Do you want to create resources? Do you want to franchise your business? That's your choice. That's your choice. So it's got to be something that you are going to enjoy doing. It's got to be something that you are driven to do. And it's got to be something that makes you happy, because your business comes from you. And if you're uncomfortable doing something, you're not feeling it, it's not going to, the energy is not going to be there and go out in that sort of abundant way. So take some time. I think as well, people kind of rush a little bit. And I think reflecting and taking time and not forcing things, really kind of considering what is at the heart of what you want to do is probably one of the most important things, alongside the strategy part of it as well.
There's two words you mentioned there, which I think are really important: energy and abundance. Like that whole idea of, if you feel really comfortable and you are putting out the right, I'm going to call it vibrations, right? Because that's what I've kind of come to believe is the right turn of phrase, but it's also energy. People pick up on it, or the right people pick up on it. It's a frequency. People literally feel it.
Yeah.
And then they'll be drawn towards you. And the idea of having abundance takes my experience has been, it's taken a lot of work to get to the idea of abundance, and there's enough out there. And I still have to do that now. Like, it's something I still have to come back to and work on and go, what, why is that blocking you? Stop it. It's fine. There's loads out there. And then I'll move on again. And it will sometimes creep back up. But yeah, the idea of energy and vibrations and abundance, if you haven't gone down that path yet, so for everybody listening, if you haven't gone down that path and opened up that door, go and do it. It's worth it. And I'm going to recommend a couple of books. And the one is The Secret.
Yeah.
Which kind of talks a lot about manifestation, but that on its own isn't enough, but it will take you down the right path. And the other one is called The Kabbalion, which is basically what The Secret's taken from. And The Kabbalion is about, I think the books are the teachings in the books are thousands and thousands of years old. They've come down from ancient times. And there's a chapter in there about vibrations, and you need to read it because it is life-changing when you start realizing it. And weirdly, and all sorts of things like synchronicity in life, if you start like noticing things start popping up, it's a bit like playing the yellow car game or the yellow van game on the motorway with your brothers and sisters. If you're looking for a yellow van and you get a punch in the arm, suddenly you start seeing yellow vans everywhere and everyone's punching one another. Well, maybe that was just my family, I don't know, but that's what we used to do on car trips. It kind of talks about this synchronicity and how it all kind of feeds into this energy. And then I was watching, doing some doom scrolling the other day on TikTok, and there was a video, and it was talking about this is where everyone's going to switch off now, right? Because this is the boring part. But there's like a connection between Einstein's theory of relativity, which is about all things that are massive, like stars and planets. And then there's the quantum realm, which is about all things really tiny, like quartz type tiny, the stuff that you can't see except under really powerful microscopes. But there wasn't anything linking the two theories together. And then came up string theory. Now, string theory is basically what links the small to the massive, and it's vibrations and energy. That is essentially it. So these things, they're all theories. So none of it's real, as in they can't really prove it. It's just what we think is real. But if anybody's ever walked into a room and gone, oh, something doesn't feel right, or you've stood behind someone and you've gone, oh, I'm getting a funny feeling, or you've walked into a restaurant and gone, I'm not staying here, like not for any particular reason, but just something's telling you, that is like you picking up on a frequency that's not on your level. And if you're putting out lots of positive energy, that means you're going to attract the right sort of people. And that's what Rosanna is kind of talking about. And I've just made it really long and complicated.
It's all true, though. It's all true.
I love all of that stuff. 4 years ago, I wouldn't have even dreamt of even like researching it, and now I'm all over it. Rosanna, is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about?
The only sort of one thing potentially is around my business name, Little Learning Links, and the 5 sort of key pillars of the links, because that kind of has approach to my tuition and to my mentoring.
Tell us more, please, Rosanna. That sounds really interesting.
So when I first started my business, and this is also something I'd sort of recommend to people starting out, is don't worry about finding the perfect name or the perfect logo. I spent ages faffing, in essence, of trying to make everything perfect and having this and having this. And I've completely changed my business name from when I first started. Completely changed it, because I kind of got to the point of what we're talking around about core values and what you want to demonstrate to, your potential people, what you show. So my tuition business is Little Learning Links, and the links stand for 5 key kind of values I have and demonstrate through my tuition and through my mentoring work as well. So the links approach is something that I put into both sets of work. So we've got liaison of sort of working together. So if we looked at it as tuition, it would sort of be the central point of bringing home and school together and sort of working with the parent, the school, and the child all together. And again, with mentoring as well, talking around me as your mentor, you as the business, as your business owner, and potentially your clients as well, and having that liaison between all three. Individualized is totally at the heart of what I do in both tuition and the mentoring, of around it being for your needs and supporting, if we go down the mentoring side, supporting you and in turn your business, because you're at the heart of it. And I do as nurturing. So nurturing your development as a business owner, as I spoke about before, going from teacher to business owner is a journey in itself. Going around the mindset pieces, I never thought anything about abundance and energy when I was working in schools either, because you just kind of in teaching moment and mindset, and suddenly that was when I started reading self-development books as well, and kind of going, oh, yeah, I liked this, I get this. Knowledge, sharing my knowledge of whether it's, a skill set with a child around how to do column addition, or sharing my skill set to help you set up your business as your mentor. And support is the last one, of in both aspects being that professional shoulder to lean on, whether it's a parent going, I'm not quite sure how to tackle this homework, can you help me? Or as your mentor going, I'm not quite sure how to do this, can you help me? Or I'm just having one of those days where I don't feel like I can do this, and we can have a discussion around what that is, where those blocks are coming from, and working through that aspect as well.
That's a really nice way of doing it. I really like that. I like the idea of having those pillars, and when you start researching these kind of pillars, they're everywhere. Like, so you can you've come up with your own, which I think is amazing. So there's like pillars like for social media, what you should be putting out. You have pillars in your own business, like Rosanna's just demonstrated. Like, it's such a nice thing to be able to go back and use, and also, like, having something like that in your business means that your messaging and what you're putting out there is almost taken care of, because you can create so many pieces of content around your pillars of your business, which I think is an amazing idea. See, I knew I was going to learn something. I always do. When we have these conversations, I don't stop taking notes, and I'll go away and I think about how it can impact myself in my own business. That's just what these connections do. It's such a fantastic thing to be doing. Rosanna, thank you so much for giving me your time this evening.
No, thank you.
I can't wait to share this in a few weeks. There's going to be so many takeaways for the people listening. So yeah, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure.
It's been great. And we'll have to do something again soon.
Yes, definitely. That'd be really good.